What is going on, my peeps? Man Versatile is back with another video, back here to simply showcase you my official Iron Man build. If I didn't stream it, that's probably why I'm recording this video right now. I talked about it as I recorded the video aspect on my PlayStation. So without further ado, here's my official Iron Man build. Check it out.
Yes, we are here. We are here today to talk about my official build for my Iron Man. Yes, I rebuilt him yesterday at the recording of this video. Basically, the live stream you guys saw, it's about 4 hours. The first hour, hour and a half is really kind of restructuring, rebuilding, and then test running it. And then I made a couple additional tweaks today to officialize the build. So if you guys want to check out the full process, it's in the Iron Man rebuild video. But here I'm going to show you guys the official build, what I actually have going down right now for my Iron Man. And I'm going to get him up to champion level 57 or 60, or just take advantage of all this XP I can, this XP bonus that we got going on for the game before I move on to another hero, which may be Cap or Thor. We will see. But for now, this is the build I got for Iron Man. And here I got all the skills, of course, all his primary skills. And this is the reason why I switched over to a range focus or range heavy Iron Man. Because he only has one column, and it's a very small column, for melee attacks, and the rest are ranged attacks. And then on top of that, his range attacks are his heavy attacks. So I looked at how can I find gear that have specific perks, how can I take advantage of his specialty skills, his mastery skills, and then I kind of messed up with the champion skills, but I can make up for that by now applying those points to the more correct columns, because as I've heard from many different other creators on YouTube and those who play Marvel's Avengers, they messed up the first column for melee and range. They don't apply correctly when you go for those bonuses. So I wish that applied, correctly. So I'm gonna stop putting stuff over there and start dealing with heroic damage, my perks, and whatnot. So as we get over there, I'm gonna show you guys the specialty. And here I use the arc field because I want my arc field and my arc overload to block incoming projectiles, so that way we can stay, safe inside. And this of course helps the teammates as well. I decided not to go with the duration because I'd rather use this. It guarantees a one directional protective bubble. So I believe if this gets applied, then you can't shoot anything in or out. So that's the thing that I don't like there. And then if I had this would have done stun damage, but I said I'm gonna stick with arc field. And then I'm going to complement that with the defensive field, because not only will it reject projectiles from the outside, it also reflects them back. So it ricochets back to the sender, or it should anyway. Moving on to my assault heroic, I use a precision refractor to get a much longer unibeam. And there's two ways you can actually have a long unibeam. First of all, the Omega beam actually does last longer than that if you hold R1 by like another second or two. But with the precision refractor, your unibeam can last like up to 7-8 seconds, and that's because all you have to do is hold down R1, and you'll actually notice your heroic assault meter drain as you hold R1. So let's say you only needed to take out one enemy, then once you let go of R1, it stops draining from your assault heroic, and then it's faster for it to recharge back up for you to then use again. So I like using precision refractor for my unibeam. Now concentrated fire is nice because this deals more damage to a target the longer the blast is maintained on a single enemy. So, and then it also has perks for the reserve capacitor skill, which allows you to have 3 saved up. And that's cool. It looks cool, but I'm good on it. Now, one of these other ones I was considering was, rapidly defeating 3 enemies with Unibeam will overcharge the intrinsic supercharge ability. So I kind of like that. If I can defeat 3 enemies with it, then I'll get supercharged. Maybe. Maybe I'll put that back on, but I do like the fact that it will deal more damage holding onto one enemy, and then fighting that Omega level threat. That kind of helps in those circumstances. And then of course you could always use the enemy defeated by unit beams will drop heroic orbs to refresh it essentially. But this I'm kind of tempted to do because if I can get overcharged, I can take advantage of other perks as well. So as long as I can defeat 3 enemies with it, I'll be good. So we'll see when we get to gear if I'll come back and switch this to triple down. But in the meantime, what I currently have from my hulkbuster is the Magnum missile barrage, which allows the missiles from the hulkbuster to target 8 enemies, and that's simply holding down L1 and R1. And then I also use the energy star, which reduces the intrinsic energy cost for the hulkbuster attacks, and that's essentially for using his his multiple punching arm. You call it the speed bag arm if you wanted to, using his repulsors or his lasers, shooting his arm back and bringing it back. Basically his you can almost call it a boomerang arm if you wanted to, but I like that because it takes less energy and I can get 3 Magnum missile launches out with this ability. So that's how I have my Iron Man set up with my specialty skills. If we go into mastery, I have the stun damage dealt to enemies by 15%. I don't juggle enemies. Well, I do, but it's critical attack as opposed to critical chance. So for me, I'm not necessarily going that route. Now, combo finisher, if I'm in the air, I can always put this back on for my repulsor and laser attacks to get a 25% increase from my combo finishers there. Here, performing a takedown forces them to drop intrinsic orbs because you need intrinsic energy to use all of his range attacks, so you might as well try to make sure you got that taken care of. I have all my range attacks dealing an additional 15% damage, which of course helps. Now I was going back and forth between critical damage because or the 15% reduction in intrinsic energy cost, because again it takes a lot of energy to use these attacks. So usually I'm between weapon efficiency mastery and boosting the attack damage. Most likely I'm probably going to switch back to the other one because I like being able to, well, let's see what happens. Okay, it didn't do nothing. So this works because I can get more attacks out, of course. So I'll often switch between these two just because it's damage or preservation of energy to run the suit essentially. Here for my range, I focus on laser mastery. So as you guys can see, all my laser stuff is taken care of. So stun damage is increased by 20%. The amount of intrinsic energy is reduced by 10%. And it decreases the amount of energy for laser attacks by 10% here as well. This one's different because it's about your aimed fire for your laser weapon. So holding L2 and then firing off, it reduces that by 10% as well. Now, if I want to go rockets, then I select the whole bottom row for all 3 columns. Increasing the damage, adds target guidance system to basic aim rockets, which is just pressing triangle, and it decreases the energy cost for rockets by 10%. So I could always go that route and switch to rockets. I kind of feel like they played the repulsors. Now if I was to go repulsors, I would come over here and change my critical attack damage for my repulsors. But here you got critical attack damage for repulsors, you got increased the fire rate of repulsors, and you have the reduced intrinsic energy cost for repulsors, but nothing for regular damage like the rockets. And for that matter, even the laser. Lasers are stun damage. I like stun damage because I like doing takedowns. So for me, I don't mind doing that, but considering, again, the amount of intrinsic here, I start battling switching that out. you know. But I think I'm fine. I think I'm fine. Mm, yeah, I think I'm good. I think I'm good. All right. So moving on. Here you got increase the base regeneration speed of the intrinsic energy by 10%, and then up here instantly generates 15% or 15 points of intrinsic energy when perfectly evading. You do a lot of that as Iron Man in the air or on the ground. And then increase the damage for all attacks while overcharged by 12.5%. I like that. I like that right there. And that's why I might go back and change that one specific skill with triple down. So you see how the skills start playing with one another. They start complementing and adding up to really get the most out of your hero. So be mindful of that when you're creating your Iron Man or your hero that you use. Really pay attention to each skill and each mastery skill, because you really get a lot out of your hero if you do that. Now, in terms of my utility skills, I gain 15 intrinsic points when parrying attacks with the energy pulse ability, or pressing R2 or holding R2 just at the right time right before they attack. Let's see, the energy barrier reflects projectiles, so when they shoot, it reflects them and it ricochets right back to the sender. And then here, increases the damage of ranged flying attacks while flying by 15%. So I use this a lot with my my lasers while I'm flying around. It's so easy to just take out drones as I'm flying into a room or turrets. And that's why I love using the laser. And so being able to increase the damage there by 15%, this is why I want to come over here, because if I increase all range attack damage by 15% here, that's a 30% boost overall while I'm flying to rockets, repulsors, and lasers. So I think I'm going to go there to deal more damage overall. And then I'm going to go back here and I'm going to switch this down to triple down, because with, I believe the Assault Heroic should count as ranged. It would be nice if they did. And if they do, then that 30% also applies to the Unibeam. I wish it would let you know. Right? It would be nice. So if it does, then switching down to triple down will allow me to supercharge Iron Man, and then I'll get more out of my overcharge abilities as well. Now, here's the champion skills. Now, I messed up by applying all my champion skills to my ranged damage boost, because if they're supposed to go up by 3%, then my ranged rating should be much higher than that. It should increase by like 30 points or something like that per selection. And if there's 5 of them, that's 15% that should get added. So you're looking at 450 points minimum to your range. It should get added to that, but they're not adding correctly. So I'm gonna stop there, and I had started here with the melee attacks, and I stopped there because I saw the same thing. Heroic, I think it actually was working a lot better there, so I did continue there. I feel like the defense and willpower boost at 4% should increase defense a little bit more. Now, granted, my defense is really, really low, and that's one thing I have to contest with certain certain gear that I've switched in and out because I'm gonna have to use my arc overload a lot, or use hopefully my perks kick in to give me defensive buffs and invulnerability buffs and Jarvis barriers. But here I emphasize my defense and my range, but now I'm going to emphasize my charge rate and my perk activation rate. If I can get those to go up, that's 15% added. Then when you click on this to see how the gear rolls out, you see at the bottom there, my charge rates will go up significantly by doing that. Now right now my ultimate's charging relatively fast, and my assault heroic is charging pretty fast. No, I wouldn't say pretty fast, but it's okay. I could improve my support heroic charge rate, and that's just with specific gear or exotic gear, if I can get even better perks there to give me that ability. But all this will go up by increasing the perk rate with the champion skill points right here. So that's how I have my skill set and my mastery set for Iron Man. Moving on over to gear, I don't do a lot of that artifact swapping, so I just stick with status effects. And the reason why I stick with status effects is because if we come on over here, not this gear in particular, but this gear, I have gamma damage coming from here, and this gear also increases damage while overcharged. So if I can overcharge Iron Man with the Unibeam, with the Arc Overload, then that's how I can take advantage of the 20% for the overcharge breaker on top of the 12.5% increase, which is 32.5% from my utility mastery. And then this also is a status effect. So what they call this is a battery damage or battery buff, which is basically doubling the damage or increasing. It's just adding damage on top of the regular damage you're causing to, you know, the enemies out there on the field. But this, you know, taking damage triggers a damage explosion, which is nice. Chance when revived to grant cosmic surge buff, and dealing damage with while the buff is active restores willpower. So I have to pass out, and since I decrease my defense, I may pass out more often. So getting revived actually triggers that, at least at a 61% rate. And then at the bottom, nimble cosmic surge, 18% chance to perfectly dodge grants cosmic surge. And then dealing damage with there's a small amount of willpower and heroic energy as well. So using these in conjunction with each other, this tactagon here allows status damage to increase already by 13%, and then it increases the status damage from all attacks by 13%. And then if I actually want to activate, you know, an exploit with Quell, you know, it'll trigger an explosion that deals exploit damage on enemies affected by any status and increases all status damage against any unaffected enemies hit. So you're looking at just compounding damage, and that's how you get those 20, 30, 40, $50,000 hit points and the 100,000 hit points that you see some of these people getting. I don't know if I'll achieve that, but I'm gonna aim for it for sure. And that's how I do that there. But looking at the gear overall, you see that, and if we look at the stats again, my might, I barely got anything on my might, but at least I got it in the 1000th point area, and it's not below that. I have my precision, my proficiency, and valor that I'm really focusing on. So that's why my range is going to do a lot of damage. Proficiency is what increases your critical chance and your perk chance. So right now my critical chance is 25%, and my perk chance is 28.6%, which is pretty nice. So, you know, keep that in mind when seeing him out on the field. He's going to be doing this thing, and then increasing your perk chance and critical chance through your champion skill points. That will also increase there as well. Valor is your heroic effectiveness, so your heroic rating, your heroic skills, those get affected. And as you see, the critical damage there is 268%. So that's how, again, that's how you get that big 100,000 hit point damage type of area. Then I got a little bit on resolve for my maximum willpower and my willpower recovery effectiveness, which is sitting at 82%. I think I had it at 100% at one point, but I lowered my resolve, of course, so it's not gonna. Well, yeah, it was way higher than that. It was like 226% because I had a lot of resolve. I had Iron Man's resolve one time at 1700, but he was more well-rounded, so he wasn't doing as much damage as he could have because he was a well-rounded hero, and that doesn't really work that well when you're doing Omega level threats or when you're playing with other people who have, you know, I guess you could call it quote-unquote tank builds, or essentially heavily favored builds in one specific area, so you feel like you're not really doing any damage in comparison to another Iron Man out in the field on a mission, or a Hulk, or not too many is gonna really compare to Thor like that, because Thor can do like 500,000 damage, which is crazy. But so I lowered my resolve for Iron Man. And then resilience, I put a little bit on there for his armor, so that way he can withstand some hits. And then I had some intensity on him, which does stuff for your stun and status meter damage and your status resistance. And then I took that off. So I wish I had some gear that I could do that with, but what I'm trying to do moving forward is get me a minor artifact, because if we check out the minor artifact, this one is valor based and this one's precision based. I'm hoping I can get me a 3 stacked precision and a 3 stacked valor, and hopefully I can retain some good gear perks, because with the valor based minor artifact I have my charge rate assault heroic went up by 9 8.3%, which is why you see it sitting at 18%. And I get increased damage from power attacks, which of course I can do by holding, you know, square or triangle for a power attack. And it's much more effective with ranged abilities because with rockets he sends out 3 sticky rockets. With the laser he shoots like a scythe laser, not a scythe necessarily, but basically he shoots at the ground and zooms up, or if he's on the ground he does like this whirlwind laser move, which is really cool. So this really works for him. And then my precision based minor artifact deal, it reduces plasma damage attacks by 5%, and my apex boon gear perk is a 5.5 increase critical hit chance for signature attacks, which you could argue signature attacks are, you know, holding down the button. What else? Maybe it's kind of hard to describe signature attacks. I thought I remembered what it was before, but if it's not your sprint and evade attacks, it's your it could be considered your light combo finishers, maybe. Or yeah, you're essentially just holding down the button to do signature attacks, which kind of go back and forth between signature attacks and power attacks. So either way, I have that area covered there. I have a lot of gear, as you guys see here, that I could potentially get rid of, but I've learned to kind of start holding on to some of this gear, because if I wanted to do something like this, I could lower that rating and bring stuff right back up, but I don't want to. I could do the same thing right here and, you know, raise my heroic even higher and my defense even higher, but I don't want to do that because I'm losing 450 on my range, which drops it down to basically 25 something, and then my heroic is higher. So it's considered, but I don't want to do that there. This is even better in terms, well, no, it's not, because I don't get as much heroic out of that one. 19, 8, yeah, so I think I was there, right? Yeah, and then if I switch it and check out what's going on here, nope, still doesn't seem like something I want to do there. Doesn't seem like something I want to do there. Now, arguably, I could, but I don't want to, you know, in terms of 3%. But this is what 3% looks like, right? See how it's like 100 and something? That's what 3% should look like when you apply it with the champion skill points, but it doesn't do that. So it's unfortunate. Hopefully they'll fix that. But as we see here, I'm not really gaining much out of all this. Now, I like the fact that I get another 1%, but it's not enough to move the needle, because I don't want to lose my heroic like that. So yeah, this is my official build, more or less. You know, if I want to do swapping, I can, because it's easy to do this. A lot of people I hear do swaps between Lethal Will and Tactagon. You know, you could essentially, you know, use Tactagon at first, apply it, and then once you start applying, then you immediately switch to your Lethal Will, and now this increases your damage boost. Or you can use Lethal Will, you know, activate your damage boost, and then you switch to Tactagon, and then as you're doing damage, and if you're doing any status damage on top of that, now you get those innate perks that kick in, and so that's how you can get a lot of damage out of that as well. So it's a real interesting way to you know, keep yourself going in the game and do a lot of good damage. I know Ring of Nebulong, I've heard from Lejeune, he uses this with Hulk, which kind of makes sense, because if you need, increases the amount restored by all orbs by 13%. So if you're constantly needing to keep your heroics refreshed, this works with that, you know. And then you can get random orbs of any type to really, you know, keep yourself refreshed in terms of that. You got Darkhold. Now this drains all energy to restore your health. So if you ain't got no kind of, you know, no kind of defense, then by using this and you unlock all the abilities, you know, you can simultaneously drain all heroic energy to restore all health, you know, simultaneously when over 50% willpower to drain willpower to critical levels and charge all heroics. And then you have another one, and I don't know if you pick them or not, because this is an interesting one, but at full willpower and with the full heroic meter to drain both sources to 50% and create a damage explosion. So that's interesting. I don't know who uses that, but I'm sure someone's pretty good at using that. Then you have the Void Tech Transponder for particle effects. I think I have this equipped on my Hulk, and I'll talk about that later, but I have some gear that's pin particle based, and all this does is boost particle damage, so that's why I have that with my Hulk. And then you have this Vishanti Appendix, willpower recovery effectiveness while invisible. This is something that you probably want to use with Black Widow, because this definitely would work in her favor. Oh, I just thought about that myself. And then Sacred Northern Star of Obsidian Spirit, increase defense. When the defense buff is active, you can always just activate a willpower boost and increase a defense buff duration. So, and I'm sure we're going to get more major artifacts. I'm definitely sure we're going to get one when Black Panther drops. I need to save my points back up from my upgrade modules, save my gear down here. But we'll see what happens when he comes. He's going to be the next point of interest, and he may become my second most used character. You know, we'll see. But right now it's Cap and Thor and Hawkeye. And so those are the ones I'm kind of focusing on now that I pretty much have completed my Iron Man build. But let me know down your thoughts in the comment section below. Do you guys play with Iron Man? Are you looking forward to playing with him? Who's your favorite hero? Any tips, tricks, recommendations? Let me know down in the comment section below. But again, as always, if you guys haven't already, make sure you guys like the like button, subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell so that way you never miss my videos. Then we can sit back, relax, and see what's cracking. But your man Versatile signing out, and until the next video, wait for it.